here is the overview. And at any time, please feel free to stop me, okay? The overview is, in not-for-profit religious institutions, everyone is welcome. Everyone must be made to feel valuable and made a contributing member of the group. It is important to maintain it as a place of social harmony, religious institutions. And in this case, we're talking specifically masjids, right? And for many people, they are struggling in their day-to-day lives, and they need religious institutions to provide emotional and social support. Okay? So this is the overview. Religious institutions, masjids, churches, generally most people are welcome. Like you'll even see signs outside of churches that say skeptics welcome. And it's very important to make everybody feel valuable and made a contributing member of the group. It's important to maintain social harmony. It's supposed to be a safe place. And we have to keep in mind, many people are struggling in their day-to-day lives, and they need religious institutions to provide social and emotional support, right? Now, this is our current situation. Due to accommodation, now, a lot of time is wasted on completely irrelevant topics, right? For example, one time I was in the masjid, and this is a case here, and they started a discussion. If someone comes in the masjid drunk, what do you do? Right? And people kept going back and forth on this question. And I was like, I didn't say anything for 10, 15 minutes. And finally I said, who here has ever experienced anybody, had a situation in which someone is coming to the masjid drunk? Because people are like, well, this ayah abrogates this ayah, this is, and I said, look, everyone here is an adult. Who has experienced a drunk person coming to the masjid? That we've been spending more than 15 minutes on this topic. So this is not relevant. Drunk people do not come into houses of worship, okay? If it happened, it is so rare, no policy is needed, right? Even without a policy, any sensible adult will know what to do, right? Because if a drunk person did come into the masjid, any sensible adult is going to know, listen, take him to a side room, keep him away from the children, and they will know what to do, right? We don't need to brainstorm this question. So, how do you shut down irrelevant talk, which saps the group's time and energy, without appearing dismissive of those who are engaged in these types of discussion? This is the key dilemma.
This is real important because you don't want to show disrespect to anyone, but you still want that side conversation to end.
Okay. Well, yeah, well, see, the side conversations are actually the main conversations. This is the problem in our institutions. Okay. So how do you shut down irrelevant talk without being dismissive? This is the dilemma. Okay. So another major point, is I'll go into the business context and why it may not apply. Okay. So the key question here is, and we see it all the time, it is in almost every single situation. Totally irrelevant stuff that in no way generally brings you closer to Allah, helps you be a better parent, helps you be a better husband, helps you be a better, whatever, helps you be better, help you be a better, it's just talk, right? So in a business context, this is what you're able to do. If someone brings up irrelevant stuff, you can say, how does this add to the profit line, the bottom line? Someone brings up something irrelevant. You can say, how does this get us to our quarterly goals, right? You can say, how does this enhance performance or product positioning, right? And you can say, unfortunately, these don't apply in the masjid since they are a safe space for all. So in a business context, if someone brings us something irrelevant, you can say, wait, so Horace, can you explain how this adds to the bottom line? Can you tell us how this gets us to a quarterly goal? This point that you're making, how does it enhance our product positioning? How does it enhance performance? And if the person brings us something irrelevant and they can't address these type of questions, they themselves generally stop making a fool of themselves. But now in a religious context, we're not able to do this. So again, the name of the talk is balancing accommodation with efficiency, because we are in a state of emergency. 35 to 40% of people are already marrying outside the faith. And I will say this even publicly. Within the next 6 to 8 years, it's going to be 60 to 65%. So we have to balance the accommodation with actually saying we are in a state of emergency. How do we shut down this irrelevant, foolish talk, which just doesn't waste time? It saps the energy and focus of the group, right? How do you do this? So how do you reconcile the sensitivities of safe space, and belonging with irrelevant ignoramus type discussions? Because that's what they are. They're ignoramus type discussions. These discussions are distractions at best and encourage intellectual stupor at worst. And we are not in a situation in which the community can even survive, forget about thrive, even survive, given our current intellectual state. And I challenge anyone to say, no, our intellectual state is if we just keep on this track, we'll be okay. No. Anybody in the work knows our current intellectual state. Forget about thriving, we can't survive, if they're being intellectually honest. How do we do this? So this is where I'll open for about 3-4 minutes, because alhamdulillah, it's a small group, but it's a committed group, right? That's why I want to do this. Because there's an advantage to a group like this, that you're all here to learn, right?
Yes.
So I'm scratching your brain. Now, how do we do this? This is the question. How do we do this? What do we do? Thoughts. You take yourself off mute. Any thoughts? Hamza, we're only 9 minutes in. We're not even 9 minutes in.
You can probably try and take control of the conversation by bringing in relevant discussions that will get people to think. That way, trying to divert their attention and thinking, oh, okay, this is a relevant issue.
Okay.
So
you're saying relevant topics, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What else? Uzair, Horace? You don't have to be right. See, this is really key. Like, I'll give you an example. There was a game piece event, right? And they said, okay, look, whoever is a volunteer for the open masjid, please come to this event. We're going to do it was like a 2-hour class, right? To try to prep you on how to interact with the guests who are going to come inside the masjid, right? So first of all, everybody was late. Let's just start with that, okay? All right. Then, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him good health, Dr. Sabil started giving the presentation. And then people have just got to start. Now, he has a very structured way. He may, they've done some research, right? Okay. They have a structured way which they're going to try to address these questions. Someone's got to start with, well, what if someone asks about the Qadianis? Okay, it's a very simple question. It's a very simple answer. But then someone's got to bring up the people who are LOC. And I remember for 20 minutes it went on. It just derailed the whole meeting. And then the person asking this, and the person that kept asking all these questions, he was supposed to be an usher, and he didn't even show up that day of the open house.
I'm starting here, brother Assad. You said which group? Rashid? I didn't understand.
He was one of the ushers. Like I was
Oh,
given a
usher.
list of these are the 12 volunteers that will help be ushers. That they're
Right,
going
so-
to help people to take off the shoes here. This is the cafeteria, and this is the thing. And that person didn't even then come to the open house.
Okay.
But the point is, there's a limited time. Dr. Sabila has done research, and me being a participant in this, I would want to extend him the courtesy. But someone
Right.
spending 20 minutes talking about the Ahmadiyya and talking about people al-Shi. Now, of course, they don't belong in the same category. But the point is, it's a question, it's a 2-minute answer. It's the end of it. Let's move on, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Al-Rashid, I didn't
Yeah,
understand.
people who are Shia, people who are Shia.
Shia. Okay, got it.
And the point is that this is just because it could be, the answer could be this simple. We have Sheikh Umar Haqqani here. There's an imam's table here. If you're asking a question, you're not sure, just direct them to that. And that's it, right? But it's not about really doing what's best for the audience. It's not about what's best for that guest. This is about just wasting time. And it is total lack of control of nafs, because that's what this is. See, usually when we talk about the nafs, right? The nafs is usually talked about in terms of controlling your sexual desire, controlling what you eat. No, the nafs is a big part of your nafs. It's just being quiet.
Not sure.
A big part of your nafs is being quiet when you're not bringing value to the group. Let me rephrase that, because this clip you should put. A big part of the nafs is staying quiet when you are not bringing tangible value to the group. Okay, so this is the question, because our resources are already very limited. And we mean material as well as human, right? Okay. So when your material, when your human resources are so limited, when your financial resources are so limited, you don't have time, right, to be dealing with this type of question. Like, for example, there's a very relevant question that comes up with a lot of people who come to the open houses. I'm just using that as an example because everyone here has been involved in that. They will say, look, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And since he's my Lord and Savior, I'm assured a place in paradise. Now you're doing this fasting and this praying and this and that, and you have no surety. That's a pretty bad deal, right? It's more likely someone is going to ask you that question than this other question, right? So how do you reconcile the sensitivities of safe space and belonging with irrelevant and ignoramus type discussions? How do we do this? And mashallah, Brother Mushtaq, Brother Harsh, you guys are actually officially, in the leadership of the masjid, right? And I'm just saying in general, are we even asking this question?
One thing that I've done in the past is thank the person for their question and then try to change the subject and focus more on what the purpose of the meeting was, and then kind of try and table that discussion for a later time.
Very good. Excellent. Very good. Okay. What other ideas? See, this is the thing that we have to be able to say what is important, right? Now, when you're in a state of emergency, it becomes even more critical to decipher what's important. And I think that is part of our issue. People don't fully understand we are in a state of emergency.
I also think that when an irrelevant topic comes up, you also have to be mindful of how you dismiss it. So for example, if it did come up, you could say something like, well, I think that that's something secondary, or something along those lines. But right now our focus is to accomplish or do, or whatever the case may be, X, Y, and Z. So that's
Very
my
good.
thought.
Exactly. And so we have to grapple with this because it's not an easy answer, right? Because if it was an easy answer, we would have figured it out by now. Because again, let's go to this, because this is important. I want everyone to now to look at that cover slide, right? Again, so the cover slide is this: religious institutions, everyone is welcome. Everyone must be made to feel valuable and made a contributing member of the group. It's important to maintain social harmony in the masajid. And we have to be able to provide support to people, because more people than not, actually, if you're being honest, are really struggling. You know, I had one person approach me, the kid is not even 10. And he's like, look, I just don't know what to do. Because every time we start dealing with it, because the kid has now become somewhat independent, and I try to discipline the child, you know, I have a dispute with the child's mother. And they're both like of the same ethnicity, the same this, the same that, the same mother tongue, et cetera, right? And it's just, and the child is not even 10 yet. The troubles haven't even started. He doesn't even have a driver's license. So this is the thing. So inshallah, like this question, because I've seen this like this, what if someone comes to the masjid drunk? What do you do? What do you do? It's like, look, people don't come into the masjid drunk, at least in Wheaton. And then I did ask this question. I said, has anyone experienced this where a person is coming to the masjid drunk because you've been talking about this for 20 minutes? Well, no, we just, no. We don't have time for just discussions. You want to do that, do it in your own house. Invite whoever you want, and you can have a 3-hour discussion on this is when this ayah was real, this is this and this, that. And then, you know, at that time, alcohol wasn't completely forbidden. It was forbidden in stages. Have it at your house. You can't have it at the masjid because it doesn't benefit the group. For us, alcohol is haram, done, end of story. And we don't need to get into these intellectual exercises because they don't bring value. So this is the structure. So what we have here is this. So 2 things. 1, meeting efficiency. 2, identify, choose topics to study and focus. So this is the structure. Everyone can see. Okay. So these are my values. Okay, so let's say for the purposes of this discussion, Assad is, this is me up here, top left. This is your values, bottom right. This would be an ideal scenario that both Assad, the efficiency guy, right, is able to reconcile with Horace. We're just doing situationally. The guy says, let's accommodate everybody. And we do a 10-10. And apathy is 0. We do nothing. We keep allowing things to unfold the way they are unfolding. This is the structure, okay? Everyone understand the graph? Any questions on the graph? Because if you don't understand this, right, you're not going to understand what I'm about to put here. Any questions at all? No questions? Okay. So my values are, in this case, and I'm not saying I'm always the efficient one, efficient and effective masjid leadership and committee meetings. That's what I want to emphasize. We want meeting efficiency. We want relevant topics. Apathies do nothing. And the flip side of this, we're, again, balancing accommodation versus efficiency to show that all ideas are welcome and that all are included, right? So we've mapped this out. Now, so for the person bottom right, what is their focus? What is the strength of their position? You want everyone to feel included and welcome in these meetings. That is the strength of that position. The weakness of that position is not all topics and subjects have the same urgency or applicability. That's a weakness of the position, right? The person who says accommodate, accommodate, accommodate. That's their position. The efficiency, mosque business needs to be conducted in a timely and successful way. This is difficult to do, though, because of many competing ideas and values. Look, there are a whole bunch of people who are active in the masajid For them, success is feeding 300 people. And everyone on this call knows it, and I would challenge someone to prove otherwise. Feeding 300-400 people and them saying how great it was, and more than half leave as soon as the speaker starts speaking is considered some form of success. And I've been hearing this since I was 10 years old. No, someone might hear something. No, I haven't seen a single case. But anyway, I digress. So this is the thing. So now, how do we work through this? So what we're saying is, this is some possible scenarios. And it was said, meetings with set agendas with beginning and time, and additional topics for discussion. Establishing meeting guideline principles with reinforcements. Set agenda, time limits, speaking turns, parking lot items, and voting on issues. So, okay, we have 4 minutes for this. It's time to vote. A big part of it is you have to reward leaders for staying on track with issues in the meeting. And one of the most effective ways to shut down ignoramus talk is to assign responsibilities to the people in the meeting. Because there's like one situation, because again, everyone has an idea. And I said, I'm not putting this on the status report unless someone raises their hand and said they're taking ownership of it. And 90% of the time, people don't raise their hand because they don't want to be actually burdened with executing it and doing the work. So it's not going in the status report. It goes to the parking lot. Since no one's put their hand up and it's in the parking lot, we're not spending any more time on it. So this is the construct. The first thing you have to be able to do is you have to recognize. Because there's a certain percentage, like the scenario we're giving, and I'm down to 7 minutes, people are not even recognizing how damaging the ignoramus talk is. Because our most precious commodity is our time, right? They don't even recognize that this accommodation is not even good for the person even keep asking this type of question. What do you do when a drunk person comes into the masjid, right? It's even a waste of that person's time. It makes more sense to talk to that person about, okay, you have children who are 7, 9, and 11. You know what? We as parents have to deal with the fact that these kids just eat a lot of processed foods, right? It makes more sense to spend 20 minutes on a healthy diet than on talking about how you control the drunk person to come to the masjid. The second is, and all three of Brother Haris, Uzair, and Brother Mushak did mention this. Okay, you have to be respectful. You can't be you can't be abrasive, right? So you respect. First, you recognize the difference. Then you got to respect it, and you have to be tactful. Then you have to try to reconcile. And some of it could be like I said, okay, listen, this is a great idea. As even Haris said that. Okay, who's going to take ownership of it? Nobody? Okay, so we parking lot it. And then lastly, then you can realize. But let's be honest, most cases, we don't even want to recognize it because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah, one other idea I just thought of is, what words are the most beautiful sounding to a person? Can anyone tell me?
Encouraging words.
Besides that?
Their own name.
Their own name. So you put their name next to whatever question or whatever thing they came up with. They're like, oh, I want to know what if the question about Qadiani's come up, what to answer. So you assign that to them, or you say that they made this comment in the meeting notes, and that way they, at least when they see the meeting notes, they can see that, hey, I made a contribution. And if they're not going to do any follow up with it, which obviously they probably won't, then that topic will be kind of put aside. But at least it's in the official meeting notes. They don't feel hurt and they feel like they spoke up.
Yeah.
That's one way to kind of realize. and give some respect as well, and then kind of table it and not have to deal with it as well.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But this is the risk here, right? And this is where as we said, the nafs is just not controlling your like biological urges and overeating. Your nafs says, I don't have to be recognized.
Yeah, that's a second level that these people, at least we're, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that we want to get to.
Exactly. And so this is why I said, let's just do the thing, because look, what I think, the story because we relocated and I disengaged. I'm actually shocked that it is this bad. 4-hour meetings to discuss what? Someone has put in 3 hours to present a 10-minute talk, and someone has to interject, ask a completely irrelevant point, and just derail the whole presentation. So this is the challenge. How do we do this? How do we really look at, we need to accommodate everybody. We need to make the masjid a welcoming place. We need to provide people the emotional and social support they need, right? We need to do these things. But we also can't feed the monster. And generally, very few people are willing to say, I'm sorry, I understand it's important to you. It doesn't really bring a lot of value to the group. Now, how you exactly say that is the need of the hour. Because the institutions are already very limited in their time, their resources, human material, all of this, right? And what we find here is we squander even the time and resources we do have. We squander the time and resources that we even do have. And as a general rule, what I found is for most people, they're not even asking the question. They realize we're not being efficient. So they understand that, but there's not, okay, how are we going to not be in this situation that a year from now, 2 years from now, that we are still, it's just not meeting efficiency. It's also what topics, what deserves our attention? Healthy eating, social cohesion, parenting, or what do you do when the drunk person comes into the masjid? I went to school in Newark, New Jersey. And even in Newark, New Jersey, a drunk person never came into the masjid. And so why are people sitting in groups for 20 minutes discussing what do you do when a drunk person comes into the masjid? Because ultimately, everything boils down to whatever we do, how does it bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How do this enhance our understanding of the religion? How does the information that's being conveyed to me or the topic being discussed, how does it strengthen my understanding of the religion? And it puts me in a position to better practice the religion. And so we have to be accommodating. We have to do this. But there's a certain amount of, we have to be a little bit more no nonsense. Because this over accommodation is crushing the community. Because say, if half of knowledge is saying, I don't know, the other half of knowledge is asking the right question. Okay, my timer went off. Okay, inshallah. So
All right, no, Jazakallah khair, brother.